This is it, people. This is what you've been waiting for. This is Everyday Celebrity Podcast. The podcast for everyday people with everyday problems, trying to find everyday solutions to accomplish everyday goals. Let's start the show. Welcome to another episode of Everyday Celebrity Podcast, the #1 podcast in Oakland, the #1 podcast in the Bay Area. And today we have a very, very special guest. What makes her special is a lot of reasons. She is an author of numerous books. Titles include Middle Maddie and I Can See Clearly. And also she goes down in history as one of the first African-American women firefighters in Richmond, California. And we're going to talk about her life and all the struggles that she had growing up and everything that came during her time as a firefighter. So I want to welcome Robin, to the podcast. How are you this afternoon?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
So we met when I was coming back from Cartagena. We were randomly sitting on the airplane together, and I was talking with your husband. Well, I believe he's your husband or your partner or whatever. And we met through that. And you were telling me a little bit about your life, and it intrigued me. That's why I invited you on. Are you originally from the Bay Area?
No, I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha, Nebraska.
Yes.
Now, how was growing up there? Because when you think of Omaha, Nebraska, I think of farms and white people.
Well, it's white people. A lot of them. And I was born in the 60s, well, late 50s. Mm-hmm. And it was definitely segregated. Mm-hmm. And my father used to say, if you want to know where all the blacks live, go where the railroad tracks are, mm-hmm. which was kind of true. You know. So
it was one of those things where one side of the railroad tracks is black and the other side is white?
Yes.
Okay, so just like the movies.
Just like the movies, okay. And predominantly, the schools were black, mm-hmm. but the teachers were white. Mm-hmm. It was, you might have some white students, it was not that many. Mm-hmm. And I didn't live too far from where Malcolm X actually lived and where they had the cross burning. And they end up, of course, tearing that down, but they end up putting a radio station there. But I grew
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's crazy that, a lot of people don't know that Malcolm X he's from Omaha, Nebraska?
He lived in Omaha, Nebraska,
okay.
Yes.
Okay. People just think he's from New York or something. I didn't know that, but go ahead.
Okay. Yes, and you had, the segregation, and then you had it where if you were dark complected, you were even more isolated. A lot of times my father didn't get jobs because of his complexion. Mm. And my mother, she worked as a maid. And I used to remember her folding and cleaning, other people's clothes and cleaning houses. And they end up both getting a job at a factory. Mm. I remember wondering what was so different from being white and being black. I knew the difference in prejudice, but not to the extreme. And when I left out of grade school, one of my friends told me, he said, the school that you want to go to is not for you. You need to go to another school. So I went to school Macmillan, which was way away from the tracks. And
is this high school or
junior high?
Junior high, okay.
Because I wanted to know why we were so isolated and what was on the other side that they were just keeping us from. Mm. And when I went there, it's another awakening as far as going from a predominantly black school to where you're a minority within a minority. Mm. But that was the education that I was receiving in Omaha. And the one thing about Omaha, if they don't like you for the reason, you can respect that because they definitely let you know. Mm. And it's nothing hidden. You have that mutual respect of, I don't like you because, and you don't like me because, and we're going about our separate ways. It's trying to grow, but in that process, it still needs more growth.
Mm.
And I end up getting married. Well, let's back. I graduated early.
Mm.
And I graduated when I was 16. But being 16 academically is different from being 16 socially. And I ran into some hiccups. So I didn't let anybody know exactly how old I was, because when I would tell them how old I was, their whole vocabulary and outlook on me, changed. And it was kind of funny was because I was a pearl to Omega Psi Phi, and they gave a dance,
Mm.
At a bar, and they had me checking ID because they didn't know.
So everyone thought you were older.
They thought I was older.
Okay.
Because when I went from junior high to high school, you learn to mask yourself in and not be a chameleon, but you learn to articulate and, form yourself. And so, that helped. And then I end up getting pregnant before, and I was the only one in my family that made it, not only graduated early, but made it to college. So it was a lot of disappointment, and they showed me the disappointment. No one really spoke to me about the disappointment, but their words, they didn't realize how they penetrated. And so I end up getting married to the father of my child, and we end up moving. So I'm leaving my comfort zone to move to California, and that was in Oceanside. He was in the service.
Wait. Well, let's stay on your childhood in Nebraska real quick.
Okay.
So you said you grew up in the 60s. Now, a lot of racist things were going on in the 60s, and I feel like if I was growing up in the 60s, I would hate to this day, hate white people, right? Did you have any bad experiences with any white people back then when you were a child?
Oh, yes. I remember one time being in the store, and I actually saw this little white girl, and I was young too, steal something. So I went and told the manager, this little girl stole something. He went to her and said, "Did you steal something?" And she said, "No." And he let her just walked away, but I saw it. Yeah. But when I went to another store, when I was trying to decide, and I was a kid too, whether I was going to get something or not, I was followed, and then I put it down because I decided not to get it. And they pulled me to the back and asked me, did I steal anything? And I told them no, and they actually checked me. When they realized they didn't have anything, they said, "Well, we're sorry, we'll treat you to a soda or something." But you see the difference, the damage was already done. Or when I was in junior high, when I went to Macmillan, Robin's nice to be dark. Or it's just, the little different things that happen because of your complexion. I was there when they had the riots. I was there also when Vivian Strong, God rest her soul, when school had just let out, and they were in the projects. We used to call them NOM. And they were just out gathering, having a good time like anyone else, the summer break, getting ready. And this officer, I want to say Mullard, if I'm not mistaken, they wanted them to disband. They wouldn't even do anything, just having a good time. And he shot into the crowd, and he killed Vivian Strong, who was only 14 at the time. I think just recently they ended up naming a street after her in Omaha after some 50 years later. And so
what happened to that officer?
Well, I think it was him or officer was blown up in a house. Right, actually next door. Yeah, two houses from my grandmother's house. Yeah.
Can you explain that story in more detail for the people who don't know about it?
Well, I want to say they allegedly thought it might have been the Panthers, because I think they ended up putting someone in jail. But it was, I guess, a form of retaliation. It was just, you shot a 14-year-old in the head, Vivian Strong. And all she was out there was she's just having a good time with the rest of her people. Or you go into stores and they follow you. Or instead of addressing you as a lady, they call you gal or girl when you're grown. It was.
And now a word from our sponsor. If you think you might be feeling depressed, stressed, anxious, or overwhelmed, today's sponsor, BetterHelp, is here for you. BetterHelp offers licensed therapists who are trained to listen and help you. Talk to your therapist in a private, online environment at your convenience. There is a broad range of expertise in BetterHelp's 20,000 plus therapists network that gives you access to help that you may not be available in your area. You just fill out the questionnaire to help access your specific needs, and then you can get matched with the therapist in as little as 48 hours. Then you schedule a video or a phone session, plus you can exchange unlimited messages, and everything you share is completely confidential. You can request a new therapist at no additional charge anytime. Join the 3 million plus people who have taken charge of their mental health with an experienced BetterHelp therapist. Get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp.com/everydaycelebrity. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/everydaycelebrity. It's waiting for you.
It was hard, but what it did was it prepared me for so many things, especially in the fire service, because I dealt with a lot of rednecks in the fire service, but I had to respect that because I knew exactly where they were coming from, because they were nothing compared to what I grew up in Omaha. Nothing at all. And
did your parents, when you were growing up, did your parents prepare you? Because you know how, like, nowadays, parents today, they tell their kids, oh, when you're driving, when the cop pulls you over, make sure you do this and that. So they kind of prepare you for interactions with racist white people. Did your parents, and everything was to the extreme back then in the 60s, not like it is today. Do you feel like your parents prepared you enough to, when you would leave your house, how to handle yourself?
Yes, they actually did. My father was a union president. He was short, so he didn't really take anything. He had come from a family of 10 from the South, and he told me that his mother and father, they moved from the South because they had 5 boys in the family. And I remember him telling me a story that when he was going to come out to California, they were on the bus, him and my mother, and this white guy was saying something racist to him, and he actually went over there and kicked him. And sat back down. You know, you're thinking anything could have possibly happened, but I'm thankful that it didn't. But no, they prepared me, even with the fire service. My father told me I would never be one of the boys, and don't trust the honk, honk. That was his terms. But no, they did prepare me. And just growing up in my neighborhood and going to those other schools, that prepared me a lot.
So both of your parents were in the household growing up?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you say you got pregnant early. Were you 18 when this happened?
17.
17?
Well, no, excuse me. I was 19.
19.
19, yes.
And your parents didn't approve?
No, they didn't like the father, called him numbnut. Excuse my language. Or doofus. My mother, she was disappointed because she had gotten pregnant early. But no one ever really talked to me about sex. They talked to me about a lot of other things. And my father would say certain things that you know. I go, well, no, not. I guess I do, but you better know. But that was the extent of the sex talk. No one, and my sister before me, she used to run away, and she was boy crazy. So they were strict on me because they felt that she snuck past them. So they were harder on me, which they didn't really need to be, because I wasn't really into boys or anything like that. I was really more into education and this, and I stuttered a lot when I was a kid. I know my mother probably said, out of all the litter, I got one that wears glasses, stutters, and everything. And is a tomboy, what direction she's going in. I mean, it was just so many different things. They probably had a lot of question marks about me. And my brother, he was older, so I didn't really have an older sister that was around.
And abortions, I'm assuming, was not a thing back then.
Abortion? It was, but that's not what I wanted. This is my responsibility. I talked to the father, we went back and forth of, we need to get married. And he says, well, I didn't come here to get married. And I didn't know you didn't come here to get me pregnant either. And my parents, they were watching to see what he was doing. I ended up working 2 jobs. I worked at a part-time at a bank, and then I worked part-time at Sears pregnant because I didn't want to get on welfare. I have nothing against it, but I felt that if I ever needed it, it'll be there. But as long as I can do something, I went and worked the 2 jobs to provide for my family.
Were you still in Nebraska at this time, or did you already come to California?
I was still in Omaha when I had my child.
Okay.
Yes.
And when did you come to California?
In around 78, because my daughter was born in 78. So it was like maybe a few months or so after we ended up getting married and we moved out here.
Oh, so you got married to the
baby's father.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So he came around.
Yeah, if you want to call that, fussing at me while we were on the road, and he ended up becoming very abusive, verbally and physically. Yes.
So your parents were? Are they still in? They stayed in Nebraska. They didn't come to California either.
No, they they would come and visit, but they stayed in Omaha.
Okay. So when you came to California, were you in the Bay Area?
I was in Southern California.
Southern California.
Yes.
Okay. And you came because of the husband, or was it both of your guys' choice?
Well, it was kind of his choice. He told me we're going to get married. I'm like, oh, okay. And by then, I didn't care if we got married one way or the other, but I wanted to get an opportunity to be a family. And so he joined the service, and we ended up moving to Oceanside.
What part of the military was he in?
Excuse me, in the Marines.
Marines?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah. You know what they say about Marine, man. They're a little fucked up in the head, but...
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So how long were you guys married?
Well, on paper, we're married about 14 years.
Okay.
And, like I said, he was abusive, and he put that, fear in me, and no one really knew. In the book, now I see clearly, it kind of addresses the abuse that I went through. And I didn't let my mother know. It's just something that you just kind of kept to yourself. And it was one time when he hit me, and my youngest daughter, well, you only had one at the time, she wanted to do something, and I told her no, and she told me, I'm going to tell Dad to hit you in your eye and make you cry. And that's when I realized. Oh, that's what your
daughter said?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I realized, wow, that's not the way to get things done. And
did you give her a whooping after that?
No, I was still kind of in shock.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was in shock, but I realized, he kept me really confined to the apartment, confined to everything. I wore glasses so people wouldn't really look at me. He criticizes my body, what I wore, everything. And when he wasn't there, no one was allowed to come over, or we had a neighbor that loved to bake, and he would come over, borrow sugar and stuff like that. And I would kind of crack the door and just kind of give it to him. He probably thought something was wrong with me. But then as the marriage went on and the abuse, I just kept being very prayerful that this is not what I wanted. If I couldn't save myself, I had to save my daughters.
So when women say they were in abusive relationships, obviously every situation and every relationship is different. Why do you think you stayed so long?
Well, because being from the Midwest, we're very family oriented. You stick it out regardless of what. Even with my mom, when I divorced him, she kept saying, well, at least he kept the house clean. She was crazy about him. But I had to break it down to her. I said, but Mom, he was hitting me. And one time she did witness him hit me. And I don't know where she got this lighter fluid and matches from. I don't know. It just magically appeared. I don't know where she got it from. But I can only speak for myself why some women stay is.
Wait, don't tell me she set him on fire?
She was going to. Yeah, she was going to. But he calmed down because we were going somewhere and he didn't get his tux. So I had to go because this is when I was in the Black Firefighters and we were having a function and we had paid for the tickets and everything. So I had to go. And, I don't know, what really happened, but it was a time too when he had jumped on me and my brother was there. And, it was, I told my brother run because, I didn't know what was going to happen. And I went to go call the police and someone said, "Oh, he's beating him up bad." I'm thinking, "Oh God, he's hurting my brother." But my brother was whipping him up really, really bad.
Uh-huh.
So, it calmed down a little bit, but not totally. And then when we moved to Northern California, it ended up, getting kind of bad. It was one time where he actually jumped on me, and it was nobody but God's hand that he had his knee into my chest, and he didn't crush anything on me. And when he was throwing me around, I had on a jean skirt, and I just remember the jean skirt being blue, leaving the blue dye on the hallway. And I tried to scrub it, and it wouldn't go away. And it just reminded me of that incident. So that just made me get more submissive because I didn't have anyone. I didn't have any family there other than my daughter. And I didn't want to go home because I didn't want to look upon, as a failure. So it's so many things that people run into, but the main thing sometimes is fear. You don't know. How can you survive? When we talked about divorce when he was in the service, they wanted to give me $50 a week or something like that for a baby. What can you do with $50 a week and nowhere to stay? And that was in the 70s. And I just kept praying and praying. Then opportunity came because I said, "There's no job out there that'll pay more and work less." And that's when the fire department opened up, when they were looking for minorities, especially women.
Was your father abusive to your mother?
I think it went both ways. They were like the Brooks and the Living Color. They fought. And my mother held her on. I watched her one time bend forward and run her head dead into his stomach. They fought, but they loved. It was like a special love. But yeah, I saw the abuse. So if I didn't see it, I take it back. I did not ever see my father hit my mother, but I heard it because my room was right next to theirs, and they would be fighting in that room.
So you didn't grow up thinking, "Oh, this is how a man is supposed to show love to a woman." You knew it was wrong at a young age?
No, not really. Not really. I thought that this is how life is. They were together. My father used to always say, "Watch out for Shirley. Take care of Shirley." They had their ups and downs, and I don't know why they would be arguing or what, but food was on the table. There was no other woman coming to the house. They worked. They did things together. I thought when my husband wasn't faithful to me, I thought it had to be something that I might have done wrong because I watched my parents, and sometimes I would see some of the things my mother would do, but not as I gotten older. I realized why she did what she did, but as a youngster, I just thought my dad could really do no wrong because I was a daddy's girl, and I really didn't know what marriage really was other than you take care of the family. You take care of your husband, make sure food is on the table, make sure the house is clean. That's what I thought a relationship was. And it's kind of ironic. I didn't realize until I got into the fire service, when I started looking at men actually support their wives and take care of them and work and take the time out to call them and see how their day is going. Or some of the guys will look at soap operas, for their wives. And then it's like the bell came on. This is what a marriage is. This is what a relationship is. But it took me in my later, my 30s to realize this is what a marriage and relationship is.
What was the last straw? Was there like an incident where you're like, "Okay, this is it, I'm leaving," and you never went back?
Well, what happened was, I stayed very prayerful, and I asked God to take that pain away from me. And it was one incident where I had just got out the academy, definitely in shape. And we were in the bedroom and he went to push me. And I pushed him back. And he flipped off the bed. And he jumped up, and I'm kind of in shock because I can't believe I did this. And so he comes running after me. So I run into the kitchen and I get a pot, and the handle is hanging from my hand, and I'm taking the round part, and I'm just tearing his leg up. He had my arm, but I was tearing his kneecap up. And then after that, that was the last time he actually put his hand on me. Yeah.
So it reminds me of that scene in you ever seen that movie What's Love Got to Do with It?
Oh yeah.
Where she fights back in the limousine.
Yes. Yes. That's what it kind of looked like. It shocked both of us, but it didn't happen again. Yes.
So you were still together when you started becoming a training for a firefighter?
Yes, but he put all kind of obstacles in my way. What I had to do was when they had different programs, I had to lie to him to tell him I'm going to this and this and this, or I'm going to church. And he said, well, I went up to church and you weren't there. And because his psychological warfare had worked so hard on me, I said, well, okay, I didn't go. But I'm thinking after I thought about it later, he doesn't even have a car. How would he get up there? But it was, and then we had like the Santa Clara Black Firefighters. They would have meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays after work. So I worked at the telephone company. So as soon as I got off of there, I rode with another lady named Robin. But their classes were late, and then she would hang out at the stations. And I used to have to remind her, Robin, I got to get back home. Gordon, he's not going to go for me coming here at 10 and midnight saying that I'm at a class. I said, you know what he's capable of doing. And she acted like it went in one ear and out the other because she didn't really want me riding with her anyway. But I think as I was progressing, someone talked to him and said, this is her opportunity to make this and do this. But I think what it was for him was him losing that grasp he had on me.
Yeah. That's usually what abusers do. They try to isolate you from your family and from everything else so they can have total control of you.
And he did. He did a very good job.
But I mean, it's impressive that you were able to hide the fact that you were in training from him for so long.
Yes, it was hard. And then when he didn't want to be going to training, he didn't want to watch the girls anymore. So I would have to take the girls with me. And when we were training in Richmond, I would just load up their bicycles and they'd ride around the drill tower while I was training.
How is the relationship with your daughters and him?
Well, he's since have passed. The oldest one, sometimes she would say something like, I wish I could just dig him up. Because when I asked him for child support, he told me, you do what you have to do. And I didn't receive any child support until my youngest daughter was getting ready to graduate from high school. So all this time, no child support. The oldest one was close to her dad. The second one, he favored more, but he didn't. But he left when she was 4 years old. And when he moved back to Omaha, and every chance that he should have talked with them when they went there, he didn't. He always made up excuses. But they knew, they're aware that he was their father. But he didn't pay any child support. And then when they finally hit him with child support, he had told the oldest daughter, well, tell your mother, to stop the child support because it's not like she needs the money. But he wasn't there when we literally had spaghetti week. My daughter said, what's for dinner? We have spaghetti left. She goes, yeah, spaghetti. I mean, we literally, until it was gone. And we struggled, but we made it. So
your kids were aware of the abuse you were suffering?
The oldest one was. The Cherie, my youngest one, she was, young, but Shanta, the oldest one was.
Okay. And when did so let's pivot into firefighting. What made you want to become a firefighter? Because that's a job and a career that usually women, you don't see a lot of women, especially Black women, go into. So what was, did someone like motivate you, or what was it that made you choose firefighter?
Well, this gentleman is George Gardner came. He was a firefighter in San Jose, and they were looking for minorities, especially women. And this my one friend named Robin, she was there the day that I wasn't. And so she was going around telling everybody about this job. You work only 10 days a month and it pays this amount of money. And so, every time I asked her, she wouldn't tell me because she knew I was in shape. And so she accidentally slipped one time and I found out. So that's how I got interested in the fire service. But because it's not anything I ever decided I wanted to do. And I had taken several tests, but Richmond was the only one that I did that I completed and did the best on. And it was one event that they try to discriminate you because for height. They couldn't say what, height because it'd be just, but what they did was they put a truck on an incline and you had to take these tarps off. And naturally when you want to reach for something, you jump. But you had to keep 1 foot on the ground. And so I had this bag with me with my tennis shoes in it, a special set of tennis shoes, and I had the bag to keep track of my scores. So when it came to that event, I had made some platform tennis shoes, the best $30 investment I had made, and I was able to get past that. And they had us jump over a 6-foot wall, and the drive, how when you're hungry, you make it over that wall.
Yeah.
And that was my motivation. Then at first they didn't want to hire us. Because they felt they had their token white woman. So the chief didn't want any more. I have my woman. And so Roseanne, who was on the list, who was a city employee, anytime you have a city employee on a list, you can't throw it out. So it had to go as duration. So what she ended up doing was filing a discrimination. And so he had to re-interview us all over again. Because like when he was interviewing us, like with me, he had somebody call in, the phone ring and everything else. You don't do that through an interview. So they had Dolores came in and she sat with him, was a sister. And he was straight up by the book and everything. And so I ended up getting picked up with another white lady that was from another city. And so she decided not to. It was like that Friday, we were going to have academy. That Monday, she decided that Friday she wasn't going to do it because they were sending her to paramedic school. So I tell Roseanne, I said, well, the lady is not coming. So you should be able to get in, especially we haven't started anything. So she called to try to get in. The chief told her they didn't have any money, but they had money Friday, but they didn't have any money Monday. And then when I got in the academy, they felt that they met their quota with me, double woman, black man, Nick, his last name was Italian. And then Bruce, who was Asian.
So this is all this stuff you were talking about is before you even start the academy.
Yeah, before I even started the academy.
Oh, wow.
And then when I started it, later on, I found out I was hired to be fired. They would put a barrel on the board and he would put my name at the bottom and tell me, at the time, my name was Reed Smith. He said, Reed Smith, only the cream rides to the top. Or he'll put eyes on the board. Or if we're running, he'll have the guys run faster if I'm slowing down, or he'll have them run circles around me. And
do you think it's because he just didn't believe women belong in that field, or do you think it was because of your skin?
I think it was a combination of everything. Of one, the chief didn't want me there because he felt he had his token with the one white lady they had. And then I was short, that didn't help. And then a woman and a black woman. So I had a lot of things going against me when I went in. And just the fact that you went against this chief's ego. And I mean, it was times, they didn't see me cry there, but I had tears. But what happened was, going through my abusive relationship, I always believe that what man made bad, God turned around and made it better. So they didn't know where my breaking point was. One guy said, I had to look up your birthday, the year you were born, because he said, you remind me of a junkyard dog. Because whatever they give to you, you come back. But it's like, I have a family to provide for. I have 2 daughters that are dependent on me. And I have to be, I'm here just like they are trying to get my job, get to work. And it was hard because the academy, I want to say maybe was like 3 or 4 months or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard, especially when you have people there trying to get rid of you. And then when they finally put me at a station, they didn't really want to train me. So I had to go to Milpitas, where Chief Crane was at, and get some of my training because they wanted to fail me. And and then they put me at a station with one guy that kept trying to molest me, and the other one was a bigot. And it came a point where I tried to do everything I could to keep from that happening. Like, the guy, I'm trying to fit in with the guys. They wear shorts and everything underneath their gear. We change off the same by the engine. And so what I would do is I would change there with them. And then that captain would come behind me and put his hand down my back of my pants.
Mm.
So what I started doing was changing in another area. And then when I was studying my maths, I stayed up late. And then he exposed himself to me. And when it came time for me to do my 9-month probation, he kept he kept bothering me. He said, he had the power of the pen. He said, I can make or break your probation. And I said, really? He said, well, yeah, this is what you have to do for me. You have to give me a baby. And I said, if I'm going to give a baby, it's going to be to my husband.
Mm.
And at the time when my husband was there before he had left, I was trying to explain to him what was happening. And the only thing he had to say was, well, they don't want you there and you don't need to be there. So I didn't have any support. Who could I talk to? I didn't have anyone really to talk to, but I stayed very prayerful. All things are possible through Christ who strengthens me. And when I finally told someone what he was doing because I got injured, they told me they were going to have him out of the station. And when I was getting ready to return back to work from an injury, the guy told me they couldn't get him out. But the only thing you have to do is don't talk to him. Now, we're at a 2-company station, and I'm not supposed to talk to the other captain. And so I'm working and trying to keep a sound mind, and I'm listening to him laugh and joke with other people. And I had to keep saying, Robin, they're not talking about you. Robin, they're not talking about you. You gotta hang in there. They're not talking about you. And it got to the end of the day, I had to call that battalion chief. I said, I can't do this. If you don't get me out of here, I'm going to walk out here on stress.
Mm.
And they got me out to another captain who was very militant. And the other captain, who was very much of a bigot, they were fighting over me. I mean, this is the same bigoted captain that would show them what I couldn't do instead of trying to help me become better. Every time I wanted to ride along, which is one firefighter would help me. He said, you need to do this and this. And he would work with me. We do this and this and this. And he finally realized, kid, I can't help you. Because they saw what time it was.
Mm.
But some of them did see the fact, that I was trying.
There was your whole time during, from when you first started doing all that testing and then to when you got assigned at a station, there wasn't one male or female that was in your corner that was that could have, I don't know, that had your best interests in mind?
Well, the woman, she was worse than the men.
Mm-hmm. The other black people didn't band together?
Not really, because, they were afraid, worried about promotions. And Terry, I call him my baby brother, he's the one that spoke up when I had filed the sexual harassment. He told them that when I was doing the bench press, the guy had his whole body over my head. Mm. He did come up, and to this day, he still has my back on a lot of things. A lot of guys, they came, but they weren't there when I was going through what I was. I mean, I can walk in a room and people would leave. Some of my gear was tampered with. It was dangerous. And, I feel like that bullseye, right there in the middle, you had white against you, blacks against you, and we're not even talking about how some of the wives treated me because they didn't want me there either. So the men were in conflict with me being there. So they really couldn't be really nice to me because they didn't want their wives to see that they had a good relationship with me.
Do you feel religion, being a religious woman, helped you get through everything? Because you said you prayed and all this. So if I was going through all that, I would not want to be. I would tell myself, why do I even want to be with these racist white people? Why do I even want to be in this career field with all these racists? Because I would feel like I'm contributing to something that I don't believe in. That's just me. I would have became hateful and a lot of hatred. But you stuck through it. You went through all that abuse, which I commend you for. Do you feel like it was your belief in faith that got you through everything?
Yes, it was my faith. Actually, not only my faith, that my faith was what delivered me from Gordon, because God not only got him out of my life, he got him out of the state. I did not ever see him again unless I was in Omaha, and that was just that one brief time. And going through...
So he was able to keep his job throughout his whole career?
No, he got out the service like in 3 years. And he was getting he got in a lot of trouble. I mean, there was one time that he got busted with weed, and I didn't even know it was there. And they arrested him, and they came to my house like in the middle of the night with me and my daughter. And they found it. I didn't even know it was there. It was hidden up in some ceiling or something. And when we had to go to court, they wanted me to go to a drug abuse or some kind of rehab and pay $100 fine. I'm like, I'm not paying anything. I don't even do drugs. I don't even drink. And so thankfully, it was an illegal search and seizure, and I was cleared. But when you have to do something, I can't give a testimony without a test. And I want people to know. And even when I retired, the same people, some of them that gave me grief, they spoke up and said, that perseverance is what Robin represents. And one gentleman said, I was going through something, and she spent time with me. The union president had respect for me because when I was going through issues trying to act captain, he was, comparing me to Nicole Simpson with all these white people in the kitchen, because we're exchanging, shifts, and it was a 2-company station. And I'm thinking, you're comparing me to someone that was murdered. And then there was a time where I was in the washroom with him, and he just said, what does it feel like to be the most hated person? And Tiscarino said, man, why don't you lighten up on her? But what happened when it came down for me to file, claims against what they were doing? One thing the Santa Clara Black Firefighters taught us, you have to keep your black book. So although I didn't say anything, all I did was look around the room and look at the clock. So when it came time to everything, I had documentation to support everything that I did. So that union president ended up respecting me because I stood up against him. You're not one of the good old boys to me, but you're affecting my family, my pay, and everything that I had. I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to show my daughters, you don't give up. And I told them, I'm a vessel. God's using me as a vessel. Now, if y'all want to tamper with that, that's on you. It's not on me. And, and I, as I had said to you earlier, what I represent, I represent that battered woman, that single parent. I batter, the women that should have got promoted that didn't get promoted. Every time I, went for a promotion, it was a fight. It was a fight to become a firefighter. When I became an inspector, Don didn't want me because he wanted to pull from a list of qualified inspectors, which I qualified. Terry was there to tell me this was happening. So I ended up becoming an inspector. When I became an inspector, I had an injury that when I was a firefighter, I fell about 25, 30 feet. You definitely see your life pass before you. I saw my guardian angel. I heard myself saying, Lord, I'm not ready to go yet. I was going face down and he flipped my body and I came straight down and I popped my ankle. It was a compound fracture. I was in the hospital. They put pins in. They're out. So you might see me walk with a limp every now and then. But I have that injury and it's a known injury. And it was one assignment that high severity that I couldn't do. And this particular fire marshal, he thought he was his way of getting rid of me. But of course, I wasn't there for man. I was there for God. And he couldn't do anything. So I ended up getting inspected when I went to go arson investigation. When I took a state test, he called it a dog and pony show. It was a fight for me to be an inspector and an arson investigator. And then I ended up being an inspector too. And they ended up demoting me because this is when they were doing that in the 27 when they were looking for ways to budget. So this chief and this fire marshal got together and they eliminated my position because I was the last one up there. But so by eliminating that position, that meant that they thought I was going to be a firefighter. So they agreed to give it to this one guy. If he took care of this one person, he can come back on contract. But again, we go back to the policies. If you have someone that's on an active list, they can't do that. But this is where I'm thank God that I used to listen to my parents when they talked about union things. I didn't know this would help me now. So I didn't come back as myself. I came back as the other guy that thought he was coming back. And I mean, they eliminated everything about me. And then I had to get training from somewhere else, or I had to sneak with Ron, God rest his soul. What is this? Show me how to do this. And even the secretary would laugh. She said, if Robin asked Don if she can go take a class across the street at lunchtime and it's free, he still would say no. Yeah. But they don't know how much they were building more and more character in me because it comes back to being raised in Omaha, being in an abusive relationship and having to fight. And again, I had daughters and I had to show them this is how you're supposed to do this.
There was a lot of negative stuff that we talked about. Was there anything good? Was there any positives about your career as a firefighter?
Oh,
because you rose through the ranks.
Yes.
And you became one of the top, correct?
Yes. And in Richmond, I became the first woman chief officer and the first woman up in prevention, which happened to be I'm a black woman. And then I also became an arson investigator and I became the deputy fire marshal, which I was the only one black woman on the West Coast, and it was 2 on the East Coast. And then also when I was with the Black Firefighters, I was the first one that they put a scholarship in my name for firefighters.
And you got recognized by President Obama?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, I did. President Obama, and I got a humanitarian award in Martin Luther King's name. And yes.
So how long was your career?
My career was almost 32 years.
32 years?
Yes, and a lot of the people that were against me, they end up leaving before me, not gracefully. Yes.
Why do you think today, I mean, well, I don't know if this is actually true or not, but from what I think is, why do you think a lot of people don't try to be firemen?
Firefighters? Well, I don't know if it's fear or time, because when we retired, it was a huge exodus. And so we're trying to get minorities, especially women, into the fire service, I try to talk to women. As soon as they tell me, well, my boyfriend might be interested, then that just lets me know this is not for you. Because when I came on, it was guys that definitely left their girlfriends. A lot of them did. And some of them left their wives. And some of the guys, I tried to talk to them about it. And you only have to take one semester of an EMT class, emergency medical technician, one semester, and you only work 10 days a month. That's only 120 days a year. And this is upward mobility. It offers so many career opportunities for you. I tell them a computer can't put a Band-Aid. There's the engine company going right now. Thank you. And you can't put a Band-Aid on a boo-boo. And with this, it just offers so much for us. And between the next 3 years, it's going to be sealed because of that age group. So that's why I'm trying to reach out to minorities, because once you decide you're going to do it, we always said it's already too late. And we always had a philosophy, if you're always in the red, so you're always going to owe. And when I was flipping, when I came up with Middle Maddie, when I used to go and teach the kids fire prevention, when I would go into the office, I saw kids that looked like me, and I remember that look. And so that made me write, the Middle Maddie series of Middle Maddie. She's not mischievous, but she's misunderstood. But sometimes her misunderstanding, she ends up at the principal's office.
So so you're saying when you're a firefighter, you only work 10 days a month? Is it nonstop, 10 days?
Well, it's like at my time when I was a firefighter, because they've changed it, was 2 days they work straight. But it was like I work Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Then I'm off Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And then I work Wednesday, Friday, Sunday.
But what I'm saying is it's not like you go there for a certain amount, then 8 hours later you go home. You got to stay there 24/7?
24/7.
24/7 for 3 days straight.
No, I think they changed it now where it's 2 days straight that they work. So they work 48 hours. But when I was working, it was 24 on, 24 off, for 3 days every other day.
Okay.
And then you have 4 days straight off. So that's how it came up to an average of 120 days or 10 days a month.
Is there an age limit to become a firefighter?
No.
So you could be in your 40s and try to start it?
I seen a guy that he had to be almost close to his 50s, and I looked at him. I go, "How long you think you're going to stay?" I'm looking. I think is where the heart is. Remember I told you about that 6-foot wall. I jumped over the wall, but it was a lady that threw her leg up there. You almost go to front and go, "Whoa!" But she didn't have it in her heart to go over the fence. So you have to have. It's not for everyone. Some things you're going to see that is, hard to deal with, but it's also the rewards from it also. You might lose a life, but you might save a life. You might see a fire where someone lost their property, but you might prevent something from happening. And to walk around and so people can see someone that looks like them and knowing that they're capable of doing it. People used to think when I had on my turnout gear, because they were so high on me, little kids used to laugh and go, "Oh, look at the rodeo clown." But when you talk to them, they knew who you were, and it gives them opportunity or something to look forward to. It gives women or any minority, anybody to show that you can do it. Look at what I went through. I have to sit back and go, "Wow, really?"
Yeah.
But it's real, and I'm still able to smile.
Do you think cities should lower their standards to attract more people?
No.
Okay.
I think they should make the standards where it's able for people to apply, because sometimes they'll alter them, and it's unfortunate. Sometimes it's people that look like us that alter them, that is make it harder for other people that look like us to get in. Emergency medical technician, you need to have that because about 85%, I would say, are medicals. So you need to have that, and that helps the academy when you're going through. And that way you're not just getting anybody that's coming in that does not have any kind of medical background. I sat on a panel one time, and they were dealing with diversity. And we asked the person, have you ever dealt with diversity? And he said, yeah, I live with Blacks, Mexicans, and then I moved to a better neighborhood. And you, but see, but again, then you have one guy that had a problem taking orders from women. Well, this woman said we couldn't give away such and such. So I'm looking at him. First of all, you can't follow SOPs. You're a thief. And the most of all, you have a problem taking orders from a woman. But I think, though, when you invest in yourself in the training, because when I was preparing for this, I would take, when they would have those, at this time, they used to have 30-day trials for the gyms, and I would go up to 28th day.
That's smart.
Yeah. And I remember bleachers. I would get yam cans. I go, what's yam cans? I said, a can of yams. And I would do curls with them. I would get a bag. I had a duffel bag and I put it with books and I would drag it. I would run bleachers. So there's no excuse for someone saying they can't get in shape. It depends on how hungry you are and how much and how bad do you want it. You can make something happen. But I think the EMT is a start of showing how serious you are about the profession.
So EMT is not required, but it's looked good upon if you have it.
Now it's required.
Oh, it's required.
It's definitely required, but that's it. What I did too was I went the medical route and I worked at Highland as a volunteer in the ER. And they go, well, what'd you do? I did that to get me mentally prepared for the trauma that I might encounter. And then I went a step further. When I took CPR, I became a CPR instructor. So everything I did, it prepared me for where I'm at. And I took classes, I had taken classes of dealing with the angry public or coping with difficult people. Sometimes they just want to see from the time that you applied to the time that you actually in this interview, what do you have are you self-motivated? What are you capable of doing? Because they're looking at that. So because you have to sell yourself. You only have 15 minutes to sell yourself. And hopefully in that 15 minutes, 5 minutes, they hear you.
Was there, in your whole 30 years as a firefighter, was there anything, do you remember anything that you still think of to this day that traumatized you?
Yes.
Like when you ask a police officer, oh, I saw this crime, I went into this house and I saw this crime, and to this day it still fucks with my head. Was there anything?
There's a couple of them. The one that the lady lost her 3 kids up in the Hilltop area. that was my investigation. And I had to you have to go through the whole process. And so I had to sit there through all 3 of the autopsies and take pictures. Because
the dead burned bodies?
Well, they actually didn't burn. What happened was the little girl knew enough because she had taken the fire prevention class because she was in the 5th grade. But at the time, she's older then, but she had taken the class. And she knew. She went upstairs and she took her sister's brother with her. And she closed the door, but she didn't put something at the bottom. So the smoke came in through the bottom because it rises. So when we responded to them, they looked like they were asleep. They weren't burned at all. And
they just passed out by breathing in the
smoke inhalation.
Smoke? Okay.
And but you can see in the girl, you can see the fear in her face. And you're looking at this and you can see that they were asleep. And it was another lady that her husband, I want to say it was Christmas or Thanksgiving. And he said his wife fell. And we're thinking, okay, we're not CPR. We're thinking, okay, we're going to C-spine her, take her out, get her to the hospital. But she actually fell because she had a heart attack. And so he was coming back and forth, kind of look. He didn't know we were performing CPR. But those are the 2 that, stay with me. Even when I go past that house, it just flashes back on me.
What was the happiest time as a firefighter for you?
I was a couple of them. One was retirement. I worked with the Youth Academy, Richmond Youth Academy for many years. And to see those young kids develop and see them go out and be so productive. For my mother to see me graduate, from the academy and to see us do drills, for my father to share with him the accomplishments, the fruits of their labor, to showing them that everything had paid off. Because I told my mom, I said, I'm doing better than you, but that's because you did your job. And it's not a put down, it's a build up. Because you and Dad instilled in me early, and I'm the results of the fruits of your labor and your words.
Yeah.
It was a lot of things, delivering babies. I delivered one baby that put me in the paper. And one of the guys said, well, I'm going to hurry and deliver this baby so I can be put in the paper too. But
you weren't delivering the baby while the house was burning, was it?
No. Sometimes, you're running in and people are running out. They're not even looking at you saying, you got this. But, and I did like actually putting out fires. It was kind of, fun, especially when.
Adrenaline rush.
Yes. And especially when you didn't use a lot of water and you were able to put it out, that was a thing of pride. That you did that and you saved, you didn't damage the people with a lot of water damage. And if I had to do it all over again, I would still want to do it because I like what I did. I love what I did. I although some of the people were, who they are, but it didn't change the fact that it provided for my family. Like I said, I didn't get child support. We struggled, but we made it. And I'm able to say I was almost 32 years in retiring from the fire service.
Did you retire because you just felt like, oh, it's time to, or was it, I don't know, were you physical ailments, or what was the reasoning?
Well, it was getting close to time. I just remember this one inspector, I was training him, and we draw to scale the diagram. And of course, I have my ruler and I'm doing this, and he just went on Google on the computer. They had this all fancy arrows pointing. I go, it's time. And it was a lot of things that they were trying to do. Like when the position that I was in, a deputy fire marshal, it was created over 30 years ago. And the reason why it was created, because the black guy and a white guy took the test. Randy Pace, God rest his soul, came out number 1. So to appease him, they gave it to the white guy and they put the deputy fire marshal position in over 30 years ago. So this position has always been filled by men. So as I'm getting ready to retire, and I had been 8 years into that position, they wanted me to take a test for a position I held for 8 years. And I told them, I'm not picking up now one book. I'm not going to play this game with you. Because if I pick the book up, if I take the test, that means it's open to everybody. So that means that you can either give it to me or not give it to me. Or I have to stay a whole nother year just to get at the salary that I'm already at. And so we went with the union, they're going back and forth. But I thought, I always believe in bringing in cousins. I really do. And so I said, well, instead of letting HR know what's going on, let me go to the city council and the city manager. So I wrote them letters letting them know this position has been filled by men for 30 years. And you wait till I get ready to retire and you want me to test for a position that I've held for 8 years. And it became, I had to get a lawyer and all that involved. But again, I was telling you, every time I was trying to leave, they always kept trying to put obstacles in there. So when I was on light duty, because I'm getting ready to leave, I can do the job, but I can't do functionally as 8 hours. And so me and the lady up in, she was in risk management. And, they had some, I don't know if they had issues with me, but they knew enough that the union told them, if you bring anything to Robin, she will fight. And whatever you use, she will use against you. See, that's my mom and dad and everybody coming out. And so Terry and I was talking to this other lady about the process of the inspector's test. And so we were a good distance apart. So the lady from risk management, who was white, comes up behind Donna and whispers, looking at us saying, "Are you okay?" I was offended by that because One, we're in uniform. We're no threat to her because we were at a safe distance. We didn't have any expressions on our face that warrant that she was in any kind of threat. So when I had a chance to see her, I said, that day that you came up and you asked, was she okay? I said, actually, we all were okay. And you have a blessed day. And then she wanted me to test for a position because what they tried to do was they wanted me to sit at the desk. And I told her again, we're going back to now she's trying to find a position for me to work in because they don't want me to work light duty. And I explained to her that, okay, if you want me to take this test to see where I can go, then, what day is it going to be? Because I can't do it Friday. I have some things to do. And so she's emailing me back and forth and she's getting upset. And I'm just giving her one-liners. And she says, I mean, you can see it in the letter and I still have it to this day. And I said, because I have something to do. I said, well, will this start on time? And how long would it take? And she responded, well, I don't think you're injured anyway. And, and I told her, I wrote back, if you put me in position, it needs to be a position that is sworn. I'm not going to be a receptionist. If it's not a sworn position, which I am a sworn officer, you can't put me in any other position. And it comes my dad with the union. So what happened was when I was off having surgery, the fire marshal, I called and let him know it went well. He said, oh, yeah, about your vacation. I said, oh, don't tell me they took the vacation. He said, no, they retired you.
Oh, wow.
So this was like Friday. How you get fired on your day off? How you get retired while you're on vacation? But it worked out because I had cleared everything out before they had even made their moves. I was already a step ahead of them. And it was nice because I didn't have to report back and them to be laughing at, why are you here? And they didn't send any special letter. I think they retired me like on the 1st. That Thursday, that's when I got my letter, wasn't even certified that I was retired. And that same day, they promoted a brother into that position that didn't have to test. Yes.
How was that even possible that they can just retire you like that? Because
I was on injury leave. I was considered light duty, and they feel they can't find anything for me. But, politics play a lot in it, too. And so they put their paperwork together. And I'm like, you know what?
I'm assuming they had to, did they have to give you, a nice severance check or something like that? Since they forced you out?
No, because I was on a medical. I was on what they call light duty. And if they can't find anything for me, they can, either accommodate me or retire me out. But my doctor said, that I'm done. As far as physically of being there, I was, and they just took that opportunity because that lady that one I said something to, she found an opportunity, but it was fine because she ended up leaving out on stress. All the ones that kind of came after me, they did not leave out gracefully.
You never let your anger take hold and fight some of these people?
Well, what it is.
Were you like one of those turn a blind eye?
Oh, no. See, I know that you can, if I'm saying something to someone, you can hear me, but you can't see me. And it was one lady in HR, she got smart with me. And I said, I got your back, but she was looking at me. But everybody heard me say that. But I looked at her and she backed up away from me. And the other lady that heard me being nice to her, she was getting smart with me. And I leaned forward to her and I said, I need for you to repeat that again because I didn't quite hear you. And I whispered and I said, you know what? I would take your little sawed-off button and hang you on a hook and watch your feet dangle. Or snatch your spine out the back of your back. And, they knew, but again, they knew enough because of my history. Because I can get my point across to you without doing the swearing and all that to them. And it was one time that one guy had filed charges against us for discrimination. And a brother. And so they had me in the room and I'm thinking, if you're in a room and you're interviewing me, shouldn't you have the door closed? But I guess my reputation preceded me. So the lady asked me, did you have any information prior to the test? And I go, yes, I did. And so she started writing, and I looked at it. I said, why wouldn't I? I was an inspector. Why wouldn't I have material for a fire marshal if I'm a fire inspector?
Mm-hmm.
I said, if I did cheat, I think I can retain something long enough not to be in the C group, which is the last group.
Mm-hmm.
Needless to say, she didn't really like my answer, but I was able to get my answer across to her just like that.
So as I mentioned in the beginning of this interview, I mentioned that you are a author. Did you start writing books after you retired, or was this a passion of yours during your career?
It's always been a passion when I was younger. Excuse me, I have allergies. When I was younger, and then when I started in the fire service, I had written a story a long time ago trying to enter this contest for Ebony. I think it got mixed up in the circular file.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I would start writing, about my abuse, because people would ask me about it. And then sometimes I would speak to people about abuse because they look at me and they look at the story, and I said, no, we are the same people. We definitely are.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would do was I would start working on, I had my thumb drive, and sometimes when they thought I was really working hard, I was actually working on my book because that was, a release for me. It took me like 5 years for Now I See Clearly. And since I'm all clear from everything from the fire service, I'm going to do a book called Let's Switch Shoes. And with the Middle Maddie didn't take me any time. And I'm working on the 4th series of Middle Maddie that's called Middle Maddie, Why Can't I Be? And another book that's coming out, I would say in the next month or so, is called Mackenzie Mystery Minis.
Mm-hmm. What is the one book that you felt it was the hardest to write?
It was Now I See Clearly, because I had to address the abuse I went through. And it was one part in the book, it was kind of a sexual thing in there that I put in the book, and it flashed back on me everything that day that happened, and just a lot of things that I had to deal with, and to be able to put it in writing. And, I tell people, I was writing this book for other people to read, but actually it helped me. It helped me with my healing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to talk to Gordon before he passed, because he said, why are you talking to me like this? I said, because I don't have no reason to cuss you. I said, because I let go and let God, and I grew up, and we both were young. So I asked him for forgiveness, any part I might have played, and forgiveness, and he we did it both ways, and that was it.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel, I mean, are you, I know you talked about it in this podcast, but when you write a book like that, you're obviously going to have to talk about the meanings of what the book is about all the time. Does it ever bother you having to relive and explain this abuse all over and over to people?
It does hurt. I do feel some pain just even talking about some of the things that I've talked to you before that my kids are not even aware of. Because, you learn to kind of suppress things kind of when you're in an abusive relationship. And my kids say, why don't you talk about this and this? I said, well, I talk about things as I feel is appropriate. I said, I'm not the Rolodex going, okay, in 19 such and such, this happened. If something opportunity presents itself, that's what I address, especially when I'm talking to women, because a lot of times they saw me in uniform. And one time I was speaking to them, and I took the uniform off, and I said, I'm still a human being. And I'm just telling you my story, because my story might be shared with somebody else in here, and it might help someone else. But I'm sharing my pain so we can cry together and grow. Because even with tears, flowers can grow. And I believe in just trying to give back, because a lot of people, I believe it takes a village, and it took a village to raise me and still raising me. But no, it hurts to talk about it, but it's healing also.
Do you feel like, I'm not really big on, I think people, I think black people are too forgiving, right? When a cop murders a woman's son for no reason, and you always see the mother, oh, I forgive the cop. I feel like you shouldn't forgive the cop. So I think a lot of black people, one of our problems is we are too forgiving when it comes to things like that being done to us. Do you feel like your reasoning of forgiving your husband and all that abuse is for your healment, or just because you are a religious person?
Was both. And it's not just religious, but for me too.
Mm-hmm.
Because, both of us played a part. I mean, not warrant that I didn't deserve to be jumped on,
Mm-hmm.
but we were both young too, not offering any excuse or anything like that. But I forgive, but I don't forget.
Mm-hmm.
That's because I don't want, because sometimes people hold on to something and you hold on so tight, you're squeezing, but you're holding on to something that you need to release so you can grow. And if I held on to everything that he did to me, which he did a lot, which the fire department, they did a lot, I wouldn't be here with you because I would be bitter. But I'd rather be better.
Yeah.
And I'd rather be, where a sister or any woman or anyone can see me and say, she went through that and look at her, and I can give God the glory, because if I would have known I was going to go through this, I wouldn't have. And it was hard, especially being in a place from Omaha, Midwest, to everything. California is fast. I had no family. I just had my daughter, and I had what I thought was my husband. And I didn't know what to do. I was scared. Again, I graduated young, so social skills, I couldn't socialize that well. I wasn't, this little sexy person, or this, I was Midwestern, wholesome, conservative woman.
Yeah.
And I didn't do drugs, didn't drink, and he did everything the opposite, of me. But it was hard, and sometimes it still is. Talking to you is still, I'm gonna have to, kind of decompress a little bit. But I hope, and I'm thankful for you sitting right here and giving me the opportunity. And I hope that's, even if it reached just one person, that's one person that we don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
Because, I responded to medicals where women have killed their spouse, or their spouse had killed them. And you wonder how many women could have been reached in that if they just knew they were worth it. Because my self-esteem and everything was shot. And it took a long time for me to get where I'm at. And I'm still trying to work at it.
Yeah. Well, your life is very impressive. It's a lot of resiliency, and it will reach. It's going to reach more than one woman. I know that, or more than one girl. So, explain to me the runaway reader. Explain to the people what that is. Okay, the runaway reader, because when I was younger, my sisters used to, pick at me, and so I would run across the street to my neighbor, Aunt Jo, but she wasn't really my real aunt, but she called me Runaway. And so it was funny because I'd say, hey, Aunt Jo, this is Rob. And you go, who? I go, Runaway. And so I just, with the name Runaway, I just use that. So when readers read it, my books, their thoughts run away because I'm detailed. So when you're relaxing and reading, it's almost like you're sitting, right there. Yeah. In the scene. And so that's why I came up with Runaway Reader. So it was Runaway Reader, just like a, I don't know, how can I explain this? Is it like a, like a record label, and then you have artists, but Runaway Reader is the company, and then you have all these books that releases through Runaway Reader? Yes. Okay. They released through Runaway, yes. Okay. And when was this? When did you launch Runaway Reader? Oh, I want to say maybe in 2019 or 2017 when I started writing the books. Okay. And they're all your books, or do you publish other people's books as well through Runaway Reader? I just published mine. I'm trying to get them published. Baby steps. Okay.
Yes.
What, Al, you explained to me the hardest book to write. What was do you have a book that it was just like fun?
Middle Maddie.
Middle Maddie?
Middle Maddie, because her thoughts, because I had to tell my granddaughter, even though my granddaughter is the picture, I said, these stories are true. And she goes, they're true, Grand? I said, they're your grandmother. She said, you did this? I go, yeah.
So what Middle Maddie about? What's the series about again?
It's about someone getting sent to the principal's office.
Okay.
She's misunderstood sometimes, and sometimes she ends up, like when I used to be at the principal's office, that's Maddie, and my aunt used to be like a roving principal. And when Maddie talks, she has these thoughts to herself. So her aunt comes there, she's saying to herself, I hope she doesn't notice me being here. And so the aunt says, well, every time I come here, you're at the principal's office. And of course, Maddie's thinking to herself, well, when do you work? So she has, her thoughts are when she gets sent to the principal's office because she brought candy. But what happened was, I say Abby, I forgot what name I used. Abby blew the bubble, Frank popped it, and Melanie just cut her bangs. She says, she's like, why am I sitting here? Frank popped the bubble because Addie blew it. Melanie cut her bangs. She still had hair. We just saw more of her forehead. But why am I the only one here? Which, because sometimes I would be guilty by just telling somebody stop. And next thing I know, I'm going to the principal's office. And you're like, what did I...
You gotta mind your own business sometimes.
Yeah, but it might be somebody telling you, leave me alone. You tell me. But they only hear your voice or they see you. And and it's a lot of times, even to this day, it still happens. When a teacher doesn't want to be bothered or they just kind of, pinpoint this one particular child, they just pick on. But I want that particular child to know that was me too. And there's hope. You're not bad. You're not, because no one ever said I was special. No one ever told me that you look okay. No one said, anything positive. What does she do now? And we still get that. And you still get people going to the principal's office that don't even know why they're there. And they get this stereotype, or this label on them that they're a bad kid, but they're not. And, teachers just keep going on. So with Mill Maddie, she's letting them know that there's nothing wrong with me. And that, and she, and in the book that I have questions where it could be group sessions or individually of how would you have addressed this? How would you look at this? So the kids can open up their minds and see, okay, this could be looked at a different way, or the teachers can look at it a different way. And Mackenzie Mysteries is dealing with the passing of my dad, but it's in a magical form of this little girl who's missing her granddad, but he left her this watch. And in leaving her this watch, she hears these voices, but she don't know where they're coming from. And so she's at school and Ian is talking and the principal's talking and everything. And she's hearing these voices and she just says, shush, out loud. And she's like, I know I said it because I heard myself say it. So the teacher tells her to go to the principal's office. And who does she encounter? She encounters Maddie. So she asked Maddie, do you hear these voices? And Maddie looks at her. She said, the only noise I hear is coming from you. And she said, you sure you don't hear the voices? And Maddie says, when I'm here, this is my me time. And she said, the little girl closed her eyes and turned her head and looked back at the wall. And Mackenzie's going, did this little girl just shush me? So that's how I tied the both in together.
Okay. And this is a series.
Yes. Okay. Middle, Mackenzie Mystery, this is my first one, but people think from what they're reading of, they want it to be a series. But Middle Maddie is getting ready to go into his fourth series.
Okay. And you said these stories are about your life. So is it safe to say they're nonfiction books, or do you consider them fiction?
Combination.
Yes. And they're children's books, yes?
The Middle Maddie Mackenzie Mystery Minis. And I'm also working on even toddlers books. My my grandson, when I babysit him, I sing songs to him. I say certain things. If he likes them, he'll smile. If not, he'll just slap his hand over my mouth.
Mm.
And one was, he said it was like at midnight. And he said that, his parents said, he's whispering this song. And it's like, what is he saying? And he's going, I'm not sleepy yet. That's one of my songs. Although I stretch and I might yarn, I'm not sleepy yet. And they can't stand that song. But he likes singing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm working on children's books also. I mean, even toddler, even younger books.
Okay.
And I always have to remind my brother-in-law and my son-in-law, remember, I'm not crazy. So make sure they don't try to say I'm insane.
Where can these books be found for purchase?
Well, you can either purchase them through me, or you can go on Outskirts, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Target, Walmart, online.
Okay. Did you, the first book that you wrote, you self-published, correct?
Yeah, all of them are self-published.
All of them self-published.
Yes,
was there anything that you ran into that you didn't expect to run into?
A lot of
self-publishing
things.
it?
Yes. It's a lot of work involved. And, it's not like you're the only author out there. And you're dealing with a lot of younger people with a larger audience. It's one guy named Robert Trujillo. He's been very helpful in being a mentor to me. He suggested some of the classes I should take, and I've been taking his classes that are women in publishing and a lot of other classes that extends, from that. He's taught me, this is what you still sticking with one illustrator, which he's an illustrator and an author. He said you need to go with different illustrators so to get different ideas. And so it's been very helpful. I mean, it's hard getting out there selling and getting out there and relating the book to people. So what I do sometimes is I send them off to the schools, certain schools, and I have them put them in their libraries or something like in Omaha. They have it in the North Omaha Library, which is a good plus. But I sent the book there, to them. But it is a lot of work, and the book that I'm coming out the Middle Maddie series, that's going to be implemented hopefully in the fire service. And, when it's ready, I'll definitely let you be the first to know. Well, the second, once I get the book, because I want to keep it, a surprise, because if I say too much, it would open it up for someone else to jump ahead of me.
Well, one thing about this conversation is roadblocks do not stop you when you set your mind to something. I've learned that now. But I would like to thank you for coming on the Everyday Celebrity podcast, sharing your life. I know you talked about a lot of stuff that was probably hurtful to talk about and to relive. And I appreciate you for sharing those times in your life. Because a lot of people listen to this, and then a lot of people might be going through the same shit that you went through, and don't have anybody to talk to as well, and they can reach out to you, and you can be that person that wasn't there for you when you were going through it. So, if you would like, do you have any social medias you want to share, like Instagrams or anything?
Yes, I don't really Instagram. I know Runaway Reader at gmail.com. The Instagram, I think that's on Runaway.
Okay.
I have somebody that put that together for me. But
Okay.
if they hit me with Runaway Reader at gmail.com, I mean at gmail.com or Runaway, I can't remember the exact wording of the website.
Well, we'll figure it out and put it in the description.
All these new things it's so new to me, of people telling you this is what you need to do, and this is, and in your mind, you're trying to formulate and put everything there plus right at the same time. But it's been a very educational and frustrating at the same time, because when you think you almost there, you get pushed further back, and it's like, man, I have further to go. And then you always have somebody asking you, well, you making any money? And it's like, you want to say, no.
Yeah. I mean, well,
it's a start.
Yeah. It's always a marathon.
Yes.
It's not a sprint. You just got to remember that. But Robin, I want to thank you for coming on once again. Everybody support her. Go buy her books. You can find them in Barnes & Noble, correct?
Yes,
Target.
online.
Online? Okay.
Yes.
great stories. She just blessed me with 4. So I got a lot of reading to do. Any last words?
I just want to thank you for just having me here. It's been delightful, and it's good to see you, interviewing me on a podcast. I mean, it's just, you're fresh to look at. You're energetic, very firm, direct. And I'm honored to be here.
Well, thank you. Well, it wouldn't be nothing without the guests. So once again, I want to thank you. And this is Everyday Celebrity Podcast, and we are out. You.